On the morning of June 3rd, 1998, a German family was enjoying their train ride with some coffee. The high-speed train was heading from Munich to Hamburg. It was around 10:30 a.m., and everything was normal until just 12 minutes later, the family got terrified when a piece of steel suddenly burst through the floor right between their seats. But that was only the beginning. It marked the start of the most dangerous accident in the history of German high-speed trains. Viewers, back to the late 1950s. Japan shocked the world when their Shinkansen, or bullet train, became the first high-speed train in the world. This train connected cities across the country like never before and made travel so fast that journeys that used to take hours were cut down to minutes. Inspired by Japan, France and Italy also built their own high-speed train networks, and Germany wasn't far behind. Germany launched its own high-speed train project called the ICE, or Intercity Express. When this train hit the tracks in 1980, the world was amazed. It seemed like this was the future of trains. Every little thing you could imagine was taken care of. Aerodynamic design, use of modern computers, and an incredibly comfortable ride. Everything looked perfect. But every perfect system has a hidden weakness. And for ICE trains, that weakness was their wheels. The wheels on the first-generation ICE trains were initially made with a monoblock design. That means the whole wheel was a solid one-piece steel, which was strong, cheap, and reliable. But there was a problem with this monoblock wheel. It happened. After a few years, passengers started complaining that when the train ran at high speed, there was this weird vibration. The glasses, spoons, and forks lying around in the buffet car where food was served would rattle because of the vibration. These vibrations and noises made the journey really unpleasant. Finally, when the engineers checked, they found the problem was inside the wheels. The monoblock wheels were indeed made in one piece and perfectly balanced on all sides. But even if just 5 grams of extra weight was added to one side, at high RPMs, this would cause vibration in the wheel, and that's exactly what was happening. Because of the high speed, friction wore down some parts of the monoblock wheels unevenly. This messed up the wheel's balance. You wouldn't really notice it at slow speeds, but when this unbalanced wheel spins at 250 kilometers per hour, it causes the whole train to vibrate. This is a common problem with any wheel. Even if 2 punctures happen on the same side of a train's wheels, it only adds a few grams on that side. Right, but the added weight can cause vibrations at high speeds. To fix this, wheel balancing is done where the technician adds an equal weight on the opposite side to balance the wheel. However, balancing the heavy wheels of a train can be really tough, especially if they're made in one piece. Replacing the wheels isn't just difficult, it's also pretty expensive. So German engineers came up with a new solution to fix this problem for ICE trains, called Reliant wheels. The special thing about Reliant wheels was that they are made in one piece. The inner ring and outer ring were separate pieces. Between the two, there was a rubber ring installed to absorb vibrations. This design was specifically chosen so that when the outer wheel wore out, only that part would need replacing, not the entire wheel. At that time, this design was also being used in trams in Germany. But the problem was those trams ran at only 30 kilometers per hour, while this ICE train had to run at 250 kilometers per hour. That was a huge issue, and you should know the details about it. We found out later. But at that time, no one paid any attention. The executives approved the design of the resilient wheels without any testing, and then in 1992, these new wheels were fitted on all the high-speed trains. Everything went fine for a few years, but in 1997, the tram company in Hanover, Austria, discovered something shocking. They noticed some cracks in the wheels of their trams. They replaced the cracked wheel parts and, as a precaution, informed Deutsche Bahn, Germany's national railway company. But since at that time on ICE trains, there were no complaints about the vibes. That's why Deutsche Bahn ignored the warning. And then exactly 1 year later, on June 3rd, 1998, everything changed. At 10:30 in the morning, ICE train 884 left Hanover Station heading to Hamburg. The train had a total of 14 coaches, 2 power cars and 12 passenger cars. Inside, there were 287 passengers and 8 crew members. Everything was normal as the train left Hanover Station. In coach number 1, George Detman was traveling with his family. Their journey was going smoothly. But a few minutes later, something suddenly hit the train floor, and in the very next moment, a piece of steel came tearing through the floor between the two seats. This sharp piece of steel was actually a part of the wheel. Seeing this, George and his family instantly panicked, feeling like the ground had slipped from beneath their feet. If that steel had veered even a little to the left or right, his family wouldn't have survived. He quickly sent his wife and kids to the compartment next door and went off to find the conductor. The conductor was in the third coach at the time. George explained everything to him, but according to company policy, the conductor can't stop the train until he checks out the problem himself. So both of them headed towards the first coach. The train was still speeding at 200 kilometers per hour, and slowly, vibrations were starting to increase. By the time the conductor and George reached the first coach, the train had already moved 3 kilometers ahead and was about to pass through a dangerous section where the track split. A broken piece of the wheel was still hanging underneath the train, scraping along the rail. As the train crossed the first section point, the tire fell off and hit the track lever, and right at that moment, something really dangerous happened. The track switch changed. Now the first and second coaches were on one track, but the third coach went on to another track. So the front and back were heading in different directions. The train's body twisted, and coach number 3 smashed straight into a concrete bridge pillar. This terrible crash broke half of the bridge. Coach number 4 collapsed but managed to avoid the bridge, only to hit the embankment, crushing 3 railway workers instantly. Coach number 5 and the 6 got crushed under 300 tons of concrete from the falling bridge. The height of those 2 coaches was later left with just 6 inches. Yeah, just 6 inches. The other coaches coming from behind, 7, 8, 9, and 10, collided at full speed, folding over each other like paper. Only the first 2 coaches, where George and his family were, survived, and the front locomotive stopped 3 kilometers ahead. When coach number 3 hit the bridge, the engineer and driver definitely felt a jolt, but they had no idea about the chaos happening right behind them. There was this massive disaster. It happened in a small town called Aichi. When the people there heard the explosion, they all ran to the spot. What they saw was something they probably would never forget for the rest of their lives. Broken train coaches, pieces of metal, fire, and people screaming. Some were trapped under the rubble of the bridge, some stuck in their seats, and the pressure-proof windows were so strong it was almost impossible to break them. The rescue workers had to bring in heavy machinery, but even then, it took several hours just to reach the people trapped inside. Over 1,000 rescue workers arrived at the site. Ambulances, military doctors, all of them teamed up and started the operation. There was a medical conference happening nearby, and 40 doctors from there also rushed to the disaster site. But by then, it was already over. In this accident, a total of 101 people lost their lives. 88 were found seriously injured, and about 100 had minor injuries. The people who were in the first 2 coaches were lucky to survive. German high-speed trains, once considered the safest in the world, faced this Asian disaster that shattered that reputation. They completely messed it up. This accident shocked not just Germany, but also people in France, Italy, and Japan, who use high-speed train networks. When investigators analyzed the whole site, at first it seemed like some vehicle had gotten onto the tracks. But when they saw the wheel part that goes under coach number 1's floor, everything started to make sense. Checking the logs revealed that the same wheel had had flat spot issues reported before, 8 times in fact, and yet they weren't replaced. There were machines to detect cracks, but inspections were still done using a flashlight. The company just brushed it off, saying those machines gave false alarms. Back in 1992, a well-known German research group called Fraunhofer warned that resilient wheels on high-speed trains could be dangerous. And in 1997, the Hanover Tram Company also issued a warning, but both warnings were ignored. Later, engineers explained that these tires rotated about 500,000 times every day. They were running at high speed. With every rotation, the steel tires would slightly compress and then expand back. This caused fatigue cracks that kept growing day by day. Because rubber was added in between, the vibrations got absorbed, so no one even realized the wheels were actually cracking. Then finally on June 3rd, 1998, just one wheel braking caused a huge accident. Just one wheel braking caused a huge accident. This disaster is considered the most dangerous high-speed train accident in the world. After this, all high-speed trains had their wheels replaced back to the monoblock design, and the junction points nearby bridges were relocated to prevent such an accident from happening again. After this incident, Germany thoroughly re-evaluated its entire rail system. Pressure-proof windows were installed so that if a rescue is needed in the future, people trapped inside can break the windows and get out. Even today, that disaster is taught as a case study in Germany's railway training centers. Monoblock wheels do have higher maintenance costs and take more time, but since they're cast as a single piece, they perform better at high speeds. They don't break easily, and vibrations are a sign that the wheels need balancing. Hope you all really like and share this video. Thanks so much for your loving comments. See you in the next awesome video.